A trust is a legal entity that can carry on a business, but it must have a trustee that controls the trust. As there is a company involved, there will be both an ABN for the trust and also an ACN for the company. To confirm, ACN stands for Australian Company Number. You can tell it as a company as it will end in Proprietary Limited or Pty Ltd for short. A company has one or more directors who control the company, so it's important to ensure that the person who you are completing the agreement with is actually a director of the company. This is a common cause for delay on agreement assessment where the person included as the contact person originally and the guarantor for a company is not the actual director. Only directors are able to sign on behalf of a company. For this reason, incorrect agreements need to be amended with the correct director's signature and details if done incorrectly the first time, which then will cause delays. Many companies will have more than one director. However, we only need one of those to be included as a guarantor and to sign as the customer. When you have a company as trustee for a trust, the agreement is completed in exactly the same way as if it were just a company, with the only difference being the legal name included. So let's take a look at page 1. So specific to a trust that has a trustee that's a company, we've got the full legal name of the trust, which will include the company name as the trustee. Because both a company and a trust are involved, you need to tick company and trust as the customer type. Be sure to include the date of the trust, which is most easily found by asking the customer or searching the ABN and entering the date the ABN was created. Because it is a company, there will be both an ABN for the trust and an ACN for the company. As I previously mentioned, is the Australian Company Number. The customer should have both of these available for you. Everything else on this page remains the same. So let's move on to page 2, being the guarantor page. As we said earlier, completion of the agreement with a company trustee is done exactly the same as if it was solely a company, except for the legal name. We only need to have one director included as a guarantor as a minimum. So the personal details of the director should be included into this section. So it's important to make sure that you've asked the customer about any property ownership they might have and enter the details here. As a side note, if the director that's completing the application doesn't own property, it is worthwhile asking whether the other director not included in the agreement happens to own property, as this will improve the likelihood of the application getting approved if they're able to be included. So in this scenario, if the other director does own property, be sure to include them as a guarantor and have them sign all the signing pages as the customer and guarantor also. As mentioned earlier, there is only one director required to be included as a minimum for a company. However, if there are two directors and both want to be included, then obviously include the second director here. And that's it for the guarantor page. So moving on to page 3, being the signature page. The director or the directors, if you've included two as guarantors on page 2, will sign here, including their name and the date signed. Because there is a company, you will tick as company director in the second box, and then as the agent, you'll sign as the witness. So now signing as individual guarantor. Each director included as a guarantor on the previous page will sign and date here, ensuring that you as the agent witness each signature. As mentioned, if a second director was included as a guarantor on page 2, they must also sign as guarantor too. And that's all for the signing page, so keep in mind that signing as the customer will be the same for the remainder of this agreement. Moving on to page 4, which is the business use declaration. The director or the directors will sign here, including their name and the date signed. For the goods acknowledgement of delivery and installation, you'll complete the customer name, which will be the same as section 1 on page 1. The signing of the goods acknowledgement is signed in exactly the same way as you did on the previous page of the customer acceptance. The director signs, including their name and the date signed. As there is a company involved, you will tick as director and then sign as witness in the box on the right. And that's all for this page. The final page for a trust that has a company as trustee is page 5, which is the direct debit request. So looking at the direct debit request at the top, enter the customer name, which is the legal name from section 1, page 1. then enter in the business bank account details for the trust. And the final signature for the agreement, the director or the directors will sign as authorising the repayment. Make sure that the date is also completed. So that's as simple as a trust with a company trustee is to complete. As you saw, the main difference has been that the agreement was signed in the same way as a company, remembering that for a company, only one director needs to be included, and you'll tick company director instead of individual when completing the customer acceptance signing.